Behold, it's Natalia. Let's go find some monkeys, shall we?
Would you say sex is like riding a bicycle?
Nothing gets me going like Christmas and wigs. Let's check out this show.
I remember the first creature I beheld. He was a squirrel. His name was Kevin.
I heard you need a DNA sample.
I want to find light and joy in things that bring us together and unite us. And I think science is something that can unite us. Ow. God damn.
There's a world out there, a world that needs to be beheld.
Hello, welcome, people of the internet. It's Natalia. Behold, I'm back. I took a little bit of a break. I'm a biological anthropologist and comedian, and if you've been watching this show before, you know that we cover all wacky, wild bits of science that need to be covered because right now the world is on fire. It is a giant trash fire, and the best we can do is talk to scientists who can help us make sense of it. And when I saw the story we're going to be talking about today out in the world, I almost shit a brick. I'm going to be very honest. These are two friends of mine that I'm also very happy are my colleagues too. And so we're going to be talking about something near and dear to my heart, which is both Neanderthals, maggots, and meat. I'm not even a meat eater. I'm a vegetarian, but just this story really rocked my world. And I hope it's going to rock your world too. So I want to ask you, people of the internet, how do you like to take your meat? Do you like it medium rare, well done, putrefied, and overflowing with maggots? Well, if you guess that, then maybe you are a Neanderthal. Because if you want to take your diet to the next level, to the paleo level, you might want to actually add putrefied meat and maggots to your diet, because they have now done a study where it looks like the reason why Neanderthals have such high levels of nitrogen in their remains is probably because they were eating this meat that was covered in fly larvae. And we're going to get to why that is and how they figured that out in a minute. But folks, I want to also hold on one second. This is live entertainment. And so I'm scrolling. This is what happens when you got multiple screens open at the same time. But so here's the deal. Researchers have been baffled at why Neanderthals had such high rates of nitrogen in their remains, on par with hypercarnivores like hyenas and lions, rather than more like omnivorous hominins. And so basically, they had to figure out why that was, because our liver cannot eat just a complete protein-rich diet. You know, we don't have the guts like a cat, like a lion. We have these long guts that are somewhere in between an omnivore and a carnivore, making us more omnivorous. And so basically this cool ass team of researchers were able to access cadavers and part of another study and look at the nitrogen level of the cadavers and look at the maggots on these cadavers to help determine how high the nitrogen levels were. And the results were shocking. And some would say gross, but I say delicious, quite honestly. So the maggots were not as high in terms of protein as, say, the decomposing corpse, but they are very, very fatty. And so this idea that maybe they were eating these decomposing corpses, were getting high amounts of nitrogen, and then when those Neanderthals were eating them, they were absorbing the nitrogen and also getting that fat, which helped them process this whole situation. So I don't know. I hear personally that here, hold on. This is where it gets tricky, folks. I'm going to show you some slides. There we go. Oh yeah. So I like to say putrefied meat and maggots is, you know, basically the meal that any mother would like to make if your mother was in fact a Neanderthal. And that right there, that's my Betty homemaker of my dreams. But yeah, here we have a delicious fellow enjoying some maggots. But I heard that this meal really pairs well with grosse. And this also calls into question, is it really gross? Because we're a species that actually likes to eat deep fried butter. We like to eat lamb fries or Rocky Mountain oysters. And if you guys at home don't know what that is just deep fried sheep boner biscuits. People do that. People choose to do that. And you know what? I'm not going to yuck anybody's yum. I'm all about using every bit of an animal, including their DNA satchels. So more power to you. There they are. They're the lamb fries. They kind of look like fried clams, you know? So, I mean, who's to, again, don't yuck anyone's yum. But this is also something that we see in the, you know, ethnohistorical studies where caribou hunters will also eat meat that has been putrefied and covered in maggots. And it's actually seen as a delicacy. So again, this is something that we see in recent history. So why wouldn't it make sense to be in the past history in the late Pleistocene when Neanderthals were running all willy-nilly around Europe and the Middle East. God, I wish I was there. I really wish I could get a time machine, a DeLorean, and go back to the Pleistocene. We also have things like, oh God, I just blanked out on the name, Marzukatsu. Thank you. It's this wonderful Sardinian cheese that is just brimming with maggots. It's not only, it can be illegal, I think, in some places, but it is seen as a delicacy. I've never tried it. I don't know. Would you try it? That's a good question, internet. I would try it. I don't know. I mean, I'm here to grub out. But folks, this is also from people that eat blue cheese. Blue cheese. Just let that wash over you, that statement. Anyways, so I just hope that after this interview and after this big hubbub of this research, that this dude gets a Grubhub sponsorship because he deserves it. They all do. All the Neanderthals do. So, folks, I want to give a little intro to my lovely guest today. So we're going to be talking to two fantastic biological anthropologists, Dr. Melanie Beasley, whose work focuses broadly on human-environment interactions throughout the hominin lineage, when the environment is influencing our evolutionary history, in the Holocene when humans are influencing the availability of prey resources, and in modern forensic context when the environment imprints meaningful geolocation information in biological tissues. She uses stable isotope geochemistry to connect humans and the environment they live in to understand changing climate, resource availability, and life history. At Purdue, where she is, well, not currently, she's actually in Canada, but we won't go into that right now. Dr. Beasley directs the isotope ecology research laboratory called Beer, which I like that. It's the buyer.
The beer lab.
It is the beer lab.
It's the beer lab.
I want to join the beer lab. Please contact her via email if you're interested. So please, we'll have that available, by the way. Now, moving on to the amazing Julie Lesnik, also a dear friend and colleague. So Dr. Lesnik combines primatology, the study of primates, sociocultural anthropology, reproductive physiology, and paleoanthropology to examine the role of insects in the diets of hunter-gatherers and our non-human primate cousins. She posits that women would likely spend more time foraging for and eating insects than men, arguing that this pattern is important to note because women are too often ignored in reconstructions of ancient human behavior. Oh boy, yes. Because the abundance of insects and the low risk of acquiring them, insects were a reliable food source that mothers used to feed their families over the past 5 million years. Oh my goodness, I am so excited. People of the internet, please welcome Dr. Melanie Beasley and Dr. Julie Lesnik. Oh, by the way, Julie is at Wayne State University in Detroit. Okay. Welcome to the internet. I mean, welcome to the show.
Yay!
How are you two doing?
Excellent. So excited to be on your show. Been like, what is it? Long time fan, first time person on your show.
Yeah, well, dear, we've known each other. I feel like with 2010, 11, something of that sort. And I just watched both of your careers.
Yeah. I was trying to think exactly when we first met. I know it was at an AABA, but I can't remember which one.
Yeah, no, it was a long time ago. I know I've interviewed Julie a few times about eating insects over glasses of wine too, talking about what pairs well with crickets versus mealworms, very important information. But I want to know more about your story, but we'll get to that in a second. I just kind of want to tackle this head on. How did you get involved in this particular research? Was this something that was brimming in your brain, or was it brought to you? Tell me more.
So it's kind of I feel in some ways a coincidence of just the stars aligning in perfect alignment for this project to happen. So Julie and I had been friends already for several years, and I had been a fan when she wrote her book, and oh gosh, now of course I'm blanking because it's live internet on what the title of your book is. Do you have your book there? Like, it's insects and eating insects and hominin evolution. And so there it is, that book, which I assigned to my classes, so I should do better at this. But yeah, so like Julie and I have been friends. She had written her amazing book. I was finishing my PhD in 2016. And I stayed at UC San Diego to do kind of one of those visiting year-long, I'll teach and figure out my life as I'm applying to things. And John Speth was coming to San Diego to give a talk. And he had not published it yet, but it was in the process of being published in paleoanthropology, a new hypothesis about in consuming putrid meat, similar to Arctic and subarctic foragers, that he had gone through the ethnohistoric record, collected all of these wonderful, rich descriptions and quotes of the observations of Western explorers and missionaries of these different indigenous groups consuming putrid meat. And he proposed then this idea that high nitrogen values in Neanderthals and in other Paleolithic hominins was due to the consumption of putrid meat, similar to the Arctic and subarctic modern foraging groups. And so he gave this talk at San Diego, and I was enthralled with the quotes, enthralled with the topic. And I was in the midst of applying to a postdoc at University of Tennessee, Knoxville, to the Forensic Anthropology Center, better known since the 1990s, so it's been around since the 1980s, as the Body Farm. And so this is the first human decomposition research facility in the world that focuses on human decomposition research in forensic anthropology. And I basically went up to John after the talk and I was like, oh my gosh, if I get this postdoc, I'm allowed to do whatever research projects. I can pitch them whatever projects I want. I'm like, I can test this. It would not be using an animal model, but I could use a human model to test whether or not nitrogen values actually increase in decomposing muscle tissue. And I said, muscle is muscle. And he was very excited, and I got the postdoc. And so then I was there, and he had a couple of quotes in his original 2017 paper that included the reference to maggots. And of course, I get to Tennessee, and there are fly larvae everywhere. And I'm like, well, in pitching this to Tennessee, I was like, this could be a new method for estimating time since death. So there was a forensic anthropology aspect to this question of, as nitrogen decomposes during decomposition, is it done in a systematic way that we could use it to estimate that post-mortem interval? And then I was like, well, muscle tissue is only going to stick around for so long. I was like, they're fly larvae. There are lots of fly larvae. Like, what if we do both of these? And I talked to John and said, basically, oh, there's fly larvae. We could extend this. There are fly larvae in some of your quotes. And so then I talked to Julie and I was like, Julie, I have this project and I know nothing about flies. And so that was essentially the formation of Team Maggot was John's idea, my ability to collect the data, and Julie's knowledge and background of how important insects have been in human evolution. And Team Maggot was born.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, and not the maggot that we usually think of when we think of the maggots. This is the new, this is the older one. This is the OG.
The OG maggot.
Yes. No, this is great. And it also, I love that because body farms are donated bodies, correct? And so it's kind of like, this is another, I think, incentive for folks to donate their body to science, because not only did it help with one study, it helped with two. It really does make a difference. So folks out there, if you're wondering if you should do it, maybe think about it. Now, Julie, when you got roped into this, were you excited? Was this like, whoa, on your radar?
Honestly, it was a really interesting moment, because in writing the book on edible insects, you have to make decisions. You have to make corners that you make boundaries. For instance, like I don't have a bunch on, I kept honey out of it, right? Like you have to just eventually just pick a lane.
Yeah, get niche.
Yeah. And so with the northern foragers, like looking at insect eating in the northern foragers, when I looked for evidence of insect eating, I came across essentially one example of caribou hunters of a parasitic fly, so that the parasitic fly would bite the caribou and the larva is actually there when you hunt them. So when they're stripping the hide, you have these parasitic larvae. And so I'd heard that they'd eaten those. So I knew there was some fly larva consumption.
Are those like bot flies?
Similar, yeah.
Similar? Okay.
Yeah. I can't remember the exact species, like if they're the exact, but or genus, but yes, essentially. And so I knew that existed, and so I just kind of mentioned in the book, and I also just kind of though wrote off the North as sort of like Neanderthals, if they were eating insects, because I was still very largely in, because insects are largely tropical when we think about them. And so I was very much in a sort of summer availability of insects to Neanderthals. And I was like, well, if they were eating them, they'd be nutritionally redundant to the meat they were eating. So if I didn't see the value of them in the little bits of info I had. But then when John focused on meat, because I was focusing on insects, I wanted to see if people were eating insects, and I'm not getting hits, I'm not getting hits, I'm not getting hits. But when John focused on eating meat, then the maggots showed up. And so as soon as Mel told me, it was like this topple of dominoes of just like, oh my God, like boom, 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 boom. Yes, yes, yes. Kazumatsu, like, oh my gosh, this is oh, fat, spring. Like all of these pieces came in because it was just this little thing I kept a blinder on. I'm like, I'm not digging into it more because I got to write this book. You got to make a decision. You got to get it out. And so the North was always sort of a weird conundrum, but I didn't understand how interesting it was. And so I remember sitting there. I mean, we were on a bench. I don't remember what room we had just come out of, but I just remember sitting side by side. Mel was on my right, and I was just like, wow, whoosh, like, yes, like this is huge. And then we went and tried to do it. We then conceptualized, how do you do this, and started setting up the study.
And what year was this?
So I got the postdoc in 2017. So I moved to Tennessee in August of 2017. John had given the talk at San Diego in February of 2017. And then later that spring is when the paleoanthropology paper came out. I immediately hit the ground running at Tennessee to set up essentially the permissions to do that particular project. And kind of work out the details. Like I had to kind of observationally figure out like, okay, how often can I sample? What exactly here in Tennessee, how long is tissue around? Should I be focusing on, was there the ability to put a bunch of individuals out at one time? It turned out there was another study that was going on that a lot of times when research designs are being kind of formulated and then approved through Tennessee, the idea is how many projects can dovetail onto the same donors that then you can kind of have all of those projects going on at once to maximize kind of the scientific information. And this other study, which had already been approved, I knew that they were going to be putting out 10 donors on the same exact day in both the winter in January and in the summer in July. And so that meant to me there was one big problem, which was the changing environment was going to be controlled. So that's where the initial trial of having 10 donors placed in the winter and 10 donors placed in the summer. So that would have been January of 2018 and July of 2018. And so then I was collecting essentially for that whole year, which the maggots, I was told observationally when I got there, I was like, okay, how long will I need to collect fly larvae? And everyone was like, oh, September, October. There'll be no more fly larvae by September, October. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I can, plan my Christmas travel, all of that. Nope, there was still fly larvae on the individuals going into December. And in fact, what was kind of most fascinating I found observationally was there would still be these huge maggot masses associated with the skeleton. So no muscle tissue at that point, but just huge maggot masses. And those maggot masses, they would look like the maggots were dead. And I'd be like, maybe they're dead. I don't know. And I'd collect them. And the minute that they were heated up, like I'd have the vial, I'd place with the tweezers, I'd grab the maggots, I'd put them in the vial, and the warmth from my hand would essentially, the maggots would come back alive and they would be in the vial and they'd be like wiggling around and I'd be like, they are alive. Okay. And then I would put them in the freezer and kill them again. But yes, they all went in the freezer. But that was, to me, that was one of the most surprising things is there was this belief, they were like, oh yeah, the maggots are all dead by the time that it's frozen and cold outside. And in fact, this last year, I had additional studies occurring at 2 other human decomposition facilities, and I went in January to one of them, and there were still maggot masses, and I collected a mass in January when it had already been below freezing temperatures several times. They're all alive. They're all like hanging out in a big warm mass. And so this is a food resource. Then you start to think like, this is going to survive for a long time and, also be a tasty treat. So yeah, it was a lot of surprises came out of that first year. And then in the second year of the trial, so then I wanted, because I placed, had the donors that were part of this other study that were placed in January, I wanted to have a little bit earlier in the winter. And so then I did trial 2, essentially starting December of 2018. And then that went all through the summer of 2019. And then I had grad students when I got the job at Purdue and moved in August of 2019. I had individuals still collecting for me of those fly larvae through that winter. So it was a full 2-year study of collecting samples.
Oh my God. I just think of this maggot cuddle puddle,
It is. Yes, it is 100% a maggot cuddle puddle.
I know, it's almost like it does kind of not humanize them, it anthropomorphizes them a little bit. You almost kind of go, oh, little babies. So little chubberinos. I mean, they've got all that adipose too, like they're little fat buddies.
That's why babies are fat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole time I was doing the study, because I knew, like, for me, this was a perfect example of where you could do data collection for one study that had this real world application with helping a new forensic method that would help in forensic science, that would have applications to these modern forensic cases. But then you could take that same data and you can apply that to this other kind of, in a way, more esoteric question of, what are Neanderthals, what are these high nitrogen values? So I'd sit there and I'd be collecting maggots and I'd just look at these masses and I'd be like, yeah, I could totally see, like, I'm a Neanderthal on the landscape. I could totally see being like, I just need a quick, tasty treat and like grabbing a handful of them. So at the same time, it was weird because I'm like, part of my brain is like, okay, these are maggots that are feeding off of human donor. Like, it was like, I don't want to eat these particular maggots, but I was like, maggots on a caribou, maggots on, some sort of like large mammoth. I'm like, oh yeah, I can see this as a tasty resource. It was a very weird psychological, like, mental twisting of, okay, I get it, but I don't want these maggots.
These ones, yeah.
No, that's a little too close to somebody's grandma, and we don't need that, nah.
Exactly.
But no,
exactly.
And while you were doing that, Julie, were you looking at, were you looking at the nitrogen level? Like, what was your kind of, what were you kind of coming in afterwards or at it at the same time?
I mostly just got to hear the stories of the maggot collection. So like, I didn't have to be there,
Are you sad? Are you sad?
I think it can come back around to me. Like, I'm not worried that I won't have an opportunity to be the maggot collector. So, but no, largely I think, a research team is a team for its different roles and it always looks different. And in so much of mine was just, in some ways, like a cheerleader and just I was the person to talk to. I was let's think this through. Let's get this written. Let's propose this. Let's shoot for this journal. Like, that was, so a lot of like initial concept up front, like, how do we structure this research design? But then the 2 years of running that design was just the team maggot, cheerleader. Yay, let's go. But hearing those stories, those direct observations, though, like being involved in it the whole time, I mean, those piles, like, it changes everything. Like, it really does. So like with Neanderthals, what you have is, we have all this, like, give them the credit of this like intentional storage, fermentation, this food preparation narrative. But how these maggots are found, this goes back to our early hominins scavenging or hunting, and how good of a scavenged resource there is under these carcasses. So it's just this resource that hasn't been talked about, that I don't think anyone knew because fat is rare on the landscape. So fat anytime in human evolution in that abundance is huge. And so it's so neat to think about. And so like how Mel said, it's like it's esoteric because like we don't have the time machine. I can't show you the Neanderthal putting it in his mouth. But all of a sudden we opened a window on a resource that nobody's been talking about. And that's after I've been shouting edible insects for so long. So like now it's even like we couldn't see this until somebody started taking insects seriously, because like that was enough of an ew factor. So it's like this is the most extreme of ew factors, and I don't think we could have gotten there if it wasn't through the exact path that led us here.
Yeah, and I love that you have taken on just this idea of eating insects, and I want you to hold up your book again because I didn't properly shout it out when I did your intro.
I need to
So
get a reversed copy of this so that it looks better on screen.
it looks beautiful, but it's edible insects and human evolution. I mean, you basically talk about how our ancestors were, fueled by insects, and that like 2 billion people in the world now eat insects. So, I mean, do you have any insight on maybe why we're so grossed out by it? I mean,
it's my career has been very bizarre. Like nobody, let alone me, could have expected where I went, because I just kept following the questions, and that's exactly the question that I found myself asking the most. Because people started looking at insects as a possible sustainable food source for for our current food systems. Like if you're farming crickets or mealworms, like the water usage, the resource usage, the greenhouse gases they emit, like all the numbers are beautiful compared to our traditionally raised livestock, but you just kept bouncing against that bias. And so now I'm an anthropologist in these circles of entrepreneurs interested in edible insects, and it's like, oh, I have to ask this question. Like, yes, I study Australopithecines really, but like as the only anthropologist in this sphere, all of a sudden I have to address why we have this taboo, why we have this ick factor. And that just became like, it's the very same thing of John finding all these ethnohistoric quotes. It was the same thing. It was just going back, and I was like, well, okay, if it's a tropical resource, then European explorers or Europeans weren't really eating insects that much. And so it's like, well, what happened when they came into the tropics? And so I just started looking for some quotes, and it was like, oh, they had some opinions. And so it was the same, like it's so interesting. It's really easy to pull out quotes that are written by sorry, the timer going off. It's easy to find quotes that are written by explorers and missionaries, and they're very negative, right? Like these people are like beasts that are eating these insects. But then you can find quotes that are more from like ethnographers, and they're like, oh, but they delighted in them with relish, So it's so much the lens of the viewer on how the reports were written. And then it was that, though, in looking at the history of what happened after exploration, that colonization happened after, these people are more like animals is step one in being able to then take their resources, take their lives, take their land. So yeah, it's part of the genocide playbook to dehumanize. Yeah. And there's no easier way. Like it's the lowest hanging fruit to be like, oh, they eat bugs, that dehumanizes them. And so it's just a playbook thing that happens over and over and over again to present day, really.
Yeah, no, it's deeply disappointing.
And yet what's interesting is after the original coverage of this, so originally Ann Gibbons covered our talk that we did on this paper at AABA in March. And after that, when it was posted, some people commented on the post related to that article about how their grandfathers in World War II, when they originally landed over in the European theater, were disgusted by the food rations that they would get that were full of maggots, and they wouldn't eat them. But within a couple of weeks, they would completely change their tune, and those were the coveted rations because you did get those extra nutrients from those rations by having the associated maggots. And so getting over that disgust response, even as an adult, when you're in a war situation, and in, obviously probably some extreme situations that they were going through, that is something that changed their opinion on what was edible and versus disgusting.
And it's hard. We have this always like, oh, we eat bugs in these extreme situations, extreme survival.
Fear factor.
And we know that, and they always just get brushed off. But I think what we're seeing here, I think that's such a really cool example of like when you say something positive about it, then somebody else can come out and say something positive about it. And then it's not such a, ew, you only do it in survival. It's like, oh my God, these things help us survive, right? Like, let's give them credit. And it's just this change in words. It's very simple, but once you start saying something positive, it allows other people to chime in.
Yeah, no, I definitely remember on Bigfoot Bounty, there was one of the contestants kept eating like ant eggs. And I remember him bringing in ant eggs in the elimination round, which also they just brought in piles and piles of poop because that's, that was the DNA evidence. So it wasn't lost on me that the elimination round was a pretty good choice for a round, but they were delicious. They actually were great. And so it was one of those things. Yeah. I mean, they were like sweet. I remember it was like, oh, this is fantastic. And so I think people are surprised. I mean, I know that people have to change their diets all the time when if they have a food allergy, or like I remember I became vegetarian at 16 and hated vegetables, and guess what? Got to learn how to love them, and it can happen. And I think, like you said, it's when people are positive about it and you enter a culture in which they accept it, and you just allow yourself to let it wash over you and accept it. We can change. We're very plastic and malleable as a species, right? So
absolutely. Well, and John, in his original 2017 article in Paleoanthropology, he does go into the kind of psychology of the disgust response, and that doesn't set in until about the age of 5 to 7 years old. And so it means that if you're growing up in a group where you're seeing mom and dad eating this delicacy, and it's this putrid, stinky meat with, teeming with larvae as garnish, and they're going, yum, this is great. You as a kid are like, yeah, that's normal. I mean, in my family, we're a stinky cheese family. My mom grew up eating blue cheese. We eat blue cheese all the time. I love it. But obviously, some people have that very different reaction where they're like, oh, no, stinky cheese? No, thank you. So it's all of that preference along with what do we grow up with and what are we used to?
Yeah.
It's a really interesting intersection of biology and culture because it's one of our few learned emotions. And so we learn disgust through our parents going, ew, 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 don't do that. And so we can just totally culturally program biology to make your stomach churn and wince and but it's fed to us culturally. So it feels so biological. It feels so like, oh, my body's trying to protect me from these insects. They must be bad because I have this physiological response. But it's like, oh no, we hijacked your physiological response at a young age.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm getting one question real quick. Peter has asked Melanie if you could reduce background mic noise in settings below. This is live entertainment, folks. Therefore, I think I'm going to try to do this with you. I'm going to go into settings. I'm going to look at audio. I found where you can do it. Go hit, and then it says reduce mic background noise under echo cancellation, if you see that.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Automatically adjust mic.
I'm going to do it too, just because I'm here to emotionally support you, and this is a team effort. So I'm going to reduce my mic.
Okay.
My background noise.
I did it correct. I think I did it correctly. Does that help, Peter? Do we know? I don't know.
Let me see.
It helps a bit. We're still getting noises from the background, but sometimes it's just drowning out when other people are speaking. So my apologies.
Oh, I can when I'm not speaking, I will mute. That's what I will do.
That's good too.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, it's the internet is sensitive, or the settings are so sensitive sometimes. I also wanted, because the people at home might not understand the importance or what the significance of nitrogen in Neanderthal remains. What does that mean? What exactly is nitrogen 15, and what is the significance of having higher rates than other hominins?
Oh, that's a great question. So in the world, I'm just going to go with the big picture.
Yes.
So in the world, there's the element nitrogen. Isotopes are going to be different forms of that same element that essentially have same number of protons, different number of neutrons, so they have different masses. So nitrogen 15 is the rare and heavier isotope. Nitrogen 14 is the abundant and the light isotope. And so all that these delta N15 values are a ratio of that heavy to that light isotope. So you're looking at that comparison between N15 and N14. All of this nitrogen, there's going to be some value in your food. And so what researchers back starting in the 60s, 70s found with these values is that you could essentially do this trophic level enrichment. In fact, my PhD advisor, Margaret Schoninger, did some of these early studies as part of her postdoc in the early 80s to show this plotting of when you look at bone collagen, you can recover nitrogen values, and that will show this essentially enrichment of that nitrogen 15, where you have a value of the plant, you have a value of the herbivore that's eating that plant, and then there is an increase of the carnivore who's eating that herbivore. I work in California, so I always like to think of it as the deer are eating the grass, and then some sort of, coyote, wolf is eating that deer, and so then you get this trophic level enrichment. In a marine system, there's a longer food chain. So think of like all of the tiny little plankton, phytoplankton, and then you have small fish, medium fish, big fish, really big fish, moving up through marine mammals like pinnipeds, seals, sea lions. And so you have a much longer food chain that you can get those increased nitrogen values. So you have these highest nitrogen values you get in a marine food system. What made Neanderthals so interesting is that normally in this trophic level food web system that you're looking at, it means that, you have whatever foods you're eating, the herbivores are in one placement, and then the carnivores are above the herbivores. With Neanderthals, the Neanderthals were placing even higher above those carnivore values. So in every site that they were finding where they were extracting collagen from Neanderthals originally this work was started in the 90s. And when Bocherens and Mike Richards and Hedges and all of these different really big researchers in isotope geochemistry were extracting bone collagen from the Neanderthals and getting these nitrogen values and looking at the associated baseline fauna at these sites, Neanderthals were plotting at the top. They were always over the cave lions. They were always over the hyenas. They were at the top of that food web. And so that's where this kind of idea of hypercarnivory originated. This was kind of going with, again, the swath of bones that were found at the sites of these large mammals with the stone tools that were found at these sites. So it's like, oh, this narrative of they are big game hunters. But of course, we know that hominins are primates, and so they have a primate digestive and metabolic system. They can't just survive on meat alone. And so starting in the early 2000s, Amanda Henry's work, I think it originated with her PhD, I think it was before her postdoc. She did some really wonderful work looking at plant foods and dental calculus, and did these not only recovering the plant phytoliths in the dental calculus, but also looking at experimental work to see that you can actually see evidence of cooking of these plant foods within that dental calculus. And she had a series of a couple of great papers. There was a paper then of, well, are marine mammals part of this at all? And there was one site from Gibraltar that might have had a bone that had some cut marks on a marine mammal. And so then there was that kind of waged into that debate. But yet this kind of narrative of hypercarnivory persisted. So it's not that we are the first ones to say, hey, maybe Neanderthals had another explanation. It's been about 20 years of people saying, hey, there might be another explanation. And honestly, it's probably not just one thing, but I think what's kind of the nice contribution of this is that we're talking about something that ethnohistorically we have lots of evidence from that ethnohistoric record of what individuals were doing in these Arctic and subarctic regions, and it makes sense. And it turns that lean game meat into a protein with a fat by eating that associated together. And so I think that associated with how high the nitrogen values are, really is a compelling argument for this might have not be the sole answer, but it's probably part of the answer.
God, that's so fascinating.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
it really is a whodunit. I mean, I feel like a lot of these esoteric, we talk about these sort of assumptions that we make, but through a lot of rigorous research are so fascinating. But it also, who are we, the weirdos that think these things? You know what I mean? Like I love anthropology for this. I do want to say real quick, my unfinished journey said, "Hail Natalia, hail Dr. Beasley and Dr. Lesnik, hail Body Farms, and hail 3K followers." Thank you very much. My unfinished sock says, "Don't confuse maggots with maggots. Like and share the stream instead." Yes, this is very true. Now, I was curious actually about the anatomically modern human contemporaries at the time, and what were their nitrogen levels? Were they same, similar?
The same.
Yeah.
The same. Like if you look at the mean values for that time period of Neanderthal and anatomically modern humans, they're identical. Like that mean nitrogen value is identical. And yet there are these two very different narratives that have been put forth for the Neanderthals and for the anatomically modern humans. For Neanderthals, it's this hypercarnivore explanation. For anatomically modern humans, it's this widening of the diet breadth to include things like fish and waterfowl and a more complex diet.
That's so.
Why?
I mean,
even when there's not marine resources, like at sites that are not like marine, they're like, oh well, they must have marine resources from somewhere. Like
they're doing some field trips. Wow, that that's a stretch. That's a real stretch. And I guess would you?
And I mean, I get it. Like at the time, like we were still in this era where Neanderthals were exceptional and they were exceptionally different. And I think with time, the last 25 years of also DNA evidence and Neanderthal genome, maybe that narrative has changed. Of Neanderthals aren't special. Neanderthals are just us. There are cousins. Do we even name them a different species? I'm not wading into those types of arguments, but you're like, if they're breeding with modern humans, where do we go with this species concept, right? And so I think that rethinking that of like Neanderthals aren't special, it's that hominins are special. And why are hominins special? Hominins are special because we do things to our food. We store it, we process it, we cook it, we do these things. And that might be the better explanation for why we're getting these high nitrogen values, is that we are not sitting at a trophic position where we should be because cooking changes that. In 2017, the same time, so Speth publishes his paper in Paleoanthropology, and this little underrated paper that nobody cites very much by Royer et al. Comes out in AJBA. And it is an experimental isotope study on cooking. And they cook meat, but they cook fish as well. And they look at carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen, and they look at what are these changes in values. And I can't quite remember if it's like, and they look at 3 cooking methods. I think it's like roasting, boiling, and maybe frying, I think. But you have to go back to the original article. It's a brilliant study. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful paper. And it shows these values that are changing. Not very much, very subtly, but that accumulation of like a per mil here, a per mil there, when you're talking about cooking, when you're talking about drying of meat, when you're talking about storing for a long time through decomposition. Because I think one of the things that comes through in the ethnohistoric quotes and accounts that John Speth accumulated is definitely the fact that these were not necessarily foods that were starvation foods. They were sometimes intentionally storing those for a month or months or going back the following year. And so you have this long amount of time of storage that was perfectly normal within that range of when they were going to access that food resource. And that is a lot of time for flies to come in and get access to that. And they're not preventing them. Like, form a cuddle puddle with your stored food.
Fatty little cuddle puddle. Jeez,
I like that.
Well, I wanted to ask a little bit about what the process of putrefaction is. Is especially with the ethnohistorical studies, but also what do you surmise was happening with Neanderthals?
I surmise a couple of I surmise a couple of things. So I was in the article, I really wanted to get in there this whole idea of like maybe they were cultivating this as a resource, you know, where like you butcher an animal, you take whatever food you're going to take back to your home base and storage, but maybe you're not going to take that whole carcass, but you know what? Flies are going to come back to that. And they, you know, they were smart cookies in my opinion. And so they probably were like, there's a carcass here. Flies, they're going to come back in a couple of, okay, we're going to come back and collect the flies again. So I really wanted to get this idea of like cultivated fly larvae. But John and Julie were like, Melanie, don't go too far. And that's reasonable. That's reasonable in
we
terms
need a time
of
machine.
Exactly. We need a time machine. So many better ways in which we can spend our money.
Yeah. Interesting,
so yeah.
That's the one thing I want to add to this is like that we don't know if we'll get to that, but because it's on our brain, who knows how the science will play out and what more refined details we'll be able to get. But I think in thinking about this Neanderthals issue, Neanderthals and modern human, it's so funny being an academic. So I'm from, a University of Michigan background. Like there's no department who's pro Neanderthal, like more like my advisor, Milford Walpuff, multi-regional evolution. Like Neanderthals were always humans in my education. It was always trying to break the bias against Neanderthals. But yet we're still like, as much as the hypercarnivory narrative could make me mad, there was nothing I could do about it until we had an answer, until we figured it out. So even when you are trying so hard to be unbiased, you're still just working with the literature that was published ahead of you, with the numbers that are ahead of you, with the questions that were ahead of you, with the underlying assumptions that are there that you don't even realize are there because they weren't your assumptions. And so we get just sort of like railroaded into these Neanderthals versus modern human narratives and I didn't even try, like, that's not how I was brought up, but you just are stuck there. And so it's really exciting that like when something comes up and you're like, yes, we can jump on it. We can publish this and say this is a better answer. Yes, this has been bothering us for 20 years, but now we can say something. And that it feels really good to do that.
Oh man, congratulations, because this is a big one. I think I'm so excited because again, like answering these questions that and I think it's interesting the fact that anatomically modern humans and Neanderthals had the same, and they were coming at it with two different, hypotheses. And it seems like we might have been one and the same in more ways than one. I just see maybe they were doing this together. Maybe one learned from the other. I don't know, but yeah. Do you see any differences also from the different, diet preferences? I know that there were studies done a few years back about Neanderthals in the Netherlands region versus those in Spain, and having more of a vegetarian diet versus one that was more meat laden.
Yeah, I don't think we didn't go into any of that in this paper. We kept this a very focused on the Neanderthal, too many N words, on the nitrogen story. So, and that's all that I've published so far. So I do have the carbon data, and we are working through essentially the mechanism of that decomposition story for the carbon. That's a little more complicated. And so that's going to be the next paper that'll come out in this kind of contributions of where this is coming from, is taking, like we had this very nice clean story of here's what happens during nitrogen decomposition, here's what happens during the putrefaction, here are the values, here are how they raise them, here's what we can do. And I think what's difficult is so often we have carbon and nitrogen, they are plotted together in these plots. And so people are like, well, you have to have both of them. And then the models that we use or that people use for estimating diet and amounts of diet and like those different contributions of different food resources are predicated on looking at the carbon and nitrogen in tandem together. So that will be kind of this next phase of the story, is looking at, okay, how much maggots would you have to eat to raise those values? So like then when we can use some of these existing mixing models to look at that nitrogen and carbon in combination and look at these in-member resources, then we'll be able to kind of, throw out some other hypotheses about that. in general, I'm not a huge fan of the mixing models. And I think that that's because I think humans are too complicated. I think that in the end, we do things to our food and that changes those baseline values, and there are just too many inputs. And so I think having some of these kind of big overarching ideas and discussions are more fruitful than trying to get down to, well, this group liked reindeer and this group liked red deer, and those kinds of specifications. And working in California, some colleagues always had asked me, they're like, okay, but are the groups eating, are they eating deer or are they eating rabbits? Like, where are you on these prey rank value systems? And I'm like, well, the rabbit is eating the grass, the deer is eating the grass. So isotopically, we're not getting the answer from those isotope values. That is not where you're going to get that distinction. So isotopes are not going to be the end all be all to all of these research questions. It's just going to be one line of evidence in the piece of this puzzle.
Yeah. And quick question about cooking and what it does to nitrogen levels. I mean, what does it, what is, yeah. So, and how much is it like,
so it depends. So, and here's the other, so it depends. So based on that Royer article, fish will increase more than meat. And they did three, I think they did pork, beef, and something else. They did like 3 terrestrial mammals. And the nitrogen was much more subtle. It was around, I'm not going to remember exactly, but I think it's around a per mil or so of an increase. And then fish could be as much as like 3 per mil in an increase. And 3 per mil is a trophic level.
Yeah,
that is that. So that trophic level, when you're talking like grass to that herbivore, the estimates are somewhere between like 3 to 4 per mil is a trophic level increase, depending on which research that you look at. And then there's some other research that is showing that humans, maybe their trophic level increase is around 5 per mil. Well, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's that we're eating cooked food.
Yeah.
And that cooking is increasing that. And that's that difference of about 1 per mil between what you would do if you're eating just kind of that raw food versus if you're doing something to that food. So there's a lot more questions that come out of this paper than answers. We think of these food to diet offsets as being kind of very standard. And that was one of the questions, is like, wait a minute, why are these maggot values up to 40 per mil? Like, this was truly the insanity of this, is that wild. It's wild. Like, and if you don't study nitrogen, you don't appreciate how high the nitrogen values are. And I reran them multiple times because I was like, no way are they this high, because I needed to confirm. I was like, this is really, 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 really high. Like, what is happening here? And so the muscle tissue was at most kind of like, 9, 10 per mil. But I was only sampling muscle until there wasn't muscle anymore. And those maggots lived 6 months beyond when there was any muscle tissue left. So they're living and surviving in this fluid, rich, soupy, decomp soil that is associated with that decomposing body, but they're those maggots that are underneath. And so it's all of that nitrogen cycling that I think is happening. So we need to understand better this nitrogen cycling, because it turns out that I did not, have the fortitude in my stomach to sample the actual decomposition fluid. That's just
I think you went above and beyond already. I think
there's a limit.
Yeah, that's fair.
Participant observation. You gotta draw the. I was gonna say. I mean, the next step, would you offer yourself as tribute and just survive on a diet of cuddle puddle maggots for maybe the next 4 months? See what happens.
No. But you know what I would do? I would sign, because I've spent the whole summer in Alaska. I would sign up for the diet of salmon all day, every day, to see how much salmon you have to eat to change those nitrogen values. That's the study. Because, again, and I'll bring this back to my background working in California, Central California prehistoric diet values, we know from the archaeological record that they're eating salmon. We know that. We have the bones. We know they're eating that. Their isotopes don't show any salmon whatsoever. If you're in the Central Valley, if you're in the Sacramento, San Joaquin, those sites, they are not showing any salmon values whatsoever, but there are salmon bones there. So the question is, how much salmon do you have to eat in order to look like you're eating salmon?
Wow.
That's the study I will sign up for. So when reviewers were asking, like, but how much maggots do you have to eat? We don't even know this for basic other populations. We don't know how much corn do you have to eat to look like you are eating corn. We don't know that.
That's wild.
One of the things I like about this study is, in all my work in trying to show insects, like it started with Australopithecines and carbon and, you know, C3 versus C4. And it's insects are one of a number of things contributing to those, you know, those patterns. And it's kind of a frustrating place to be because, like, you can't, how many, you know, like, how many termites do you need to eat? And it's like, well, it's not just termites, right? So, like, yes, I could do that calculation, but it's meaningless because I never said they're termite specialists. But here, because the maggot values are insane, it's worth doing how much maggots to see that difference. Like, it's the same story in that it's, yes, insects and other things contributed, but here the powerful swing of those insects is going to be undeniable when we see those nitrogen values in those maggots.
I mean, is there an animal? I don't think this could pass an IRB, but I don't know if it's like, you know, if there's an animal that already likes grubbing out an eye. Can we get an eye? Can we find an eye? Get him to tap, only decomposing flesh-eating maggots.
Well, I mean, truthfully, I haven't really thought about all the different ways that we could start, you know, asking these questions differently, but I don't know the nitrogen values of your insectivore primates versus, right? Like that, those values could be found out pretty simply. They might exist. We didn't really look into it, but those are questions to ask.
But if they're not decomposing,
pretty sure Brooke Crawley. I'm pretty sure Brooke Crawley looked at that, and specifically with lemurs as well. And so there is some of that. There is some. There is some of that data like out there and available. But at the same time, they're not doing the cooking. They're not doing. So what's interesting is how do we explain Neanderthals being a trophic level above where we would expect them to be? But really the question is, why are hominins? Hominins are what are looking like they're consistently a trophic level of, well, they're above the trophic position of where they should be.
That's wild. I have another maggot question. I've got so many maggot questions. I never thought I'd say that. That's not a like sentence that I thought would ever come out of my mouth. But with the maggots that are eating the decomposing flesh, I would assume they're the ones that are going to have that very high nitrogen. But what about a maggot that hasn't done that yet? You know, like, or maggots that don't survive on that per se, maybe, you know, more
all maggots are pretty much surviving on that though.
Yeah. I mean, like, but ones that live in the soil, the compost, like a compost, you know, pile.
So I haven't tested any of those. I do have plans to do that, and specifically black soldier flies are sold as chicken feed. And you know that they're not eating black soldier flies that are being raised. So I'm gonna end up this fall for one of the student projects I have. Like, I'm gonna buy me some chicken feed and see what are these black soldier fly larvae that are different than the ones that are feeding. So that will again, get part of this story. So there's a lot of these little kind of side questions that come out of this type of research. And I think that's what is exciting, is that there are definitely more questions than what we have answers for that have stemmed from this. So if you're interested in any of this, students, like, I'm accepting grad students, like, come work with me. So yeah, that's definitely something that will continue to be pursued in the future.
I might have to go back to school.
The black soldier flies as poultry food is interesting because they tend to be fed poultry food to raise them. So like a lot, we don't have, like, if we're raising crickets for human consumption, we don't have cricket feed, so we use chicken feed. And so the black soldier flies is actually a really great way to test this trophic level because they likely ate the diet you would have fed the chickens if you weren't feeding them. So they are going to show that trophic level beautifully. So that's a perfect little funny study.
No, I like that. That's, yeah, it kind of throws everything on its head. I don't know. I do think I called chickens house dinosaurs. So I do like the idea that possibly their nitrogen levels can go through the roof, and they really are just a small velociraptor running amok in your house. Yeah. But just to be clear, the black soldier fly larvae, do they eat decomposing flesh as well? Is that their,
they eat everything.
Anything and everything.
They're even being looked at as like a way of getting rid of waste because you put them as compost piles. They break down things super fast. So they're sort of a super fly in that way, like to do a lot, and people are studying them a lot.
Oh, okay, good. Yes, we need more. I never thought.
Yeah, the cattle industry is using them specifically to remove manure.
Wow. Wow. That is a real shit show. I am a fan of them. No, that's great. I mean, whatever does the job, honestly. Especially, would they eat something that is generally seen as non-compostable? Would they try? I could almost.
There are insects that eat plastic, but I believe those were beetle larvae. I believe that was more the mealworm than the maggot. And so it's always funny when you get into these conversations because like we'll be talking about mealworms as food and it's like, but don't eat the ones eating the plastic. Like that's not what I'm saying. Like you can have mealworms eating plastic to like get rid of plastic, but then you can have mealworms for us to eat and they'll be delicious. But don't eat the plastic eating mealworms.
No, don't do that. Public service announcement. Yeah. Don't eat the plastic eating mealworms, maggots. Nope, don't do it. Have you guys enjoyed a little maggot action? Have you? Yeah, I mean, I know that. Yep.
Mealworms. I think you have mealworms there.
Yeah,
those are beetle.
Well,
larvae.
they just generically say insect larvae. Yeah. They say insect larvae, but the first time I gave this talk, I was at Purdue, and it was this faculty thing. And I brought these and I was like, afterwards, if any of the faculty want to come up and try it, like, some of the larvae with me, only 2 faculty out of a whole room of faculty. Nobody would do it. But I had two brave sociology souls who were friends of mine that they were like, yeah, we'll do that. Because, I mean, they sell these in Mexican spice and cheddar cheese.
It's much easier to give a talk about termites and get people to eat insects than it is to give a talk about maggots and get people to eat insects. Like it's just that's sort of the irony of my life with this study is that like I've worked so hard to be like positive and no disgust value and let's talk, and then but then larvae are
did it. I did get.
I mean, these are freeze dried, so they're like just crunchy and good. And put anything with nacho cheese on it, and I'm there.
Yeah,
but I have eaten black soldier fly larvae. So that aside, I have eaten black soldier fly larvae raised for human consumption. And so I have eaten maggots. I never really thought of it that way because I try to use the word larvae as much as I can. But yeah, I've had maggots.
I guess is maggot. I mean, and forgive my ignorance here. Is maggot and mealworm, are they two separate things? Or I thought so one is beetle larva, one's fly.
Means a fly larva.
Yeah.
Maggot is fly larva. And so they're all larvae. It's just a larva of a specific species, order or whatever. Yeah. So flies.
And if you talk to an entomologist, they get very touchy about the term maggot because that's like the colloquial, that's the layman's term to use.
This is a conversation we had to have about this paper is like, can we, like, I remember Mel being like, can I put maggots in the title? And I was like, we can put maggots in the title.
I mean, forever.
Term. It's specifically it's a colloquial term that elicits disgust, right? Like it is a word that we tried to use carefully.
Yeah. Well,
and I won't lie. I like the alliteration, maggot Melanie. Like my research just becomes, Melanie's doing maggots. It's maggot Melanie girl. Maggot Mel.
Maggot Mel. Oh no. Whatever happened to Maggot Mel? I think she's down in the body farm.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to watch this show, folks. That's all I'm saying. I want to see. I feel like this right here could be a great anthro sitcom, personally. again, it's the combination of all the good things: eating insects, Neanderthals, a whodunit. It's the best. Now I got to ask you, and I feel like you kind of touched on it a little bit. What's the filthiest thing you've done in the name of science?
Yeah. I would say, Mel, you win on that one. I'll have to think. Talk about collecting a little bit more. Oh no, we lost your.
Your sound is gone.
Lost your sound.
Sorry, I think I froze there for a minute. What was it? What were you guys talking?
What's the filthiest thing? Oh, sorry. What is the filthiest thing you've done in the name of science?
Oh, recording error. I don't know what's happening now.
Oh no, I think you might be frozen. Hold on. Canada's being mean.
Yeah, I know. I can hear you guys.
We can hear you now. I think you're good. Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Because you guys are frozen, but I can hear you. So I don't know. Weird. Learn more for recording error. I don't know what's happening.
Peter, she got a recording error. What is that? Oh no. Oh no. Did we lose her?
We did lose her.
1 second. Okay. Canada has taken another. I'd like to think it was the mealworms that just were like, slowly.
Yeah, I think it was. We weren't ready for how filthy her collection stories are.
I can't wait to hear, because I have the first time I ever went to a cadaver lab was with Blaine Maley, who I know you know. But do you know Blaine? No. Okay. He ran the med school at Marian University in Indianapolis, and we went there after lunch, which was not preferable. Right. And I remember it did. Well, I don't know what is preferable, but it smelled like barbecue sauce. I'll just say that. I felt like I know a faint whiff of BBQ. So, what about you? What's the filthiest you've done?
The filthiest I remember was doing bioarchaeology in Peru. We were excavating a tomb that was a structure they called a chulpa. And it just kept going down and deeper. And so it was like belly, like pulling bones out of a pit. And so that's probably the filthiest I've ever been was on my stomach in loose dirt collecting human bones.
That, who amongst us has not been on our stomach collecting human bones in a world of dirt? That's amazing. Oh, that's so. And you still kept going. You still became a scientist.
Oh man, that was like mid-career. I had PhD, right? Like that was,
So Mel, we're talking about the filthiest things we've done for science.
I feel like it's probably this study for sure. But I mean, at the same time, like we think of this as, it's larvae, it's decomposing individuals. But at the same time, there's a shout out that goes to the donors who have given the ultimate gift, which is themselves to science. And none of this would be able to be possible without that amazing gift of donation. And so in some ways, if you have the ability to kind of separate that is a individual that's dead, and you can say like, oh, this is for this greater good of science and this project and this research that they themselves wanted to be a part of, then I think it's less disgusting and more like kind of that reverent respect that you have for individuals who have donated themselves to science.
No, that's a very important thing to acknowledge, because it is the ultimate gift, right?
Yes.
It makes a huge impact. And I know that I remember, who did I interview? Was it Kim Congdon? Shout out to Kim, fellow anthropologist.
Shout out to Kim.
Yeah. We talked a couple years ago about the shortage of cadavers and how it's tough, and you can't really, we were joking, like you can't really advertise on the side of a bus, like, got body, want to donate to science, like it's not something, and there's also need to investigate and do some research to make sure it's not, it's going the way where you want it to and things of that sort. But it is, it is it is a gift, and it does help progress our field. So yeah. Oh my goodness. And have you gotten any pushback from any haters?
Not as of yet. I mean, I think some of the quotes that people were quoted on in the news coverage, people, very respected Neanderthal researchers talked about how they would like to see this done more on actual foods that Neanderthals were eating. And I absolutely agree. This was seen as a pilot study and proof of concept of what happens to the nitrogen. But having, the land space to do something like with cattle, with deer, with some larger herbivore species, that's going to take a little bit more logistics. And so I saw this as a dual purpose study and a first step rather than the answer to end all be all.
Yeah.
I think we were very intentional about getting the forensic data out first, right? This study was done for a forensic study, and then the Neanderthal stuff was secondary, like an opportunity we had. So that was very intentional. But I also was very surprised that there wasn't that, like in going through review, that there wasn't pushback about the human cadaver. Because honestly, I was worried about cannibalism, people talking about cannibalism, like, because that was 20 years ago, Neanderthal cannibalism was like the hottest topic. And so it really was not an issue, I think, because of how we did the research and we were able to just write up the research as such. It was very clear that we took advantage of an opportunity. We didn't set out humans to study Neanderthals. And so, yeah, people understood what we did and didn't spin off on the things that I thought they might have. So it worked really well.
Wow, it's almost like they understood the nuance, which is
wow. You don't
that is not. It reminds me of what I think was it Eric Trinkus that did the paper about Neanderthals and their injuries similar to rodeo clowns, and unfortunately, I love. And people were like, "Oh, they were writing woolly mammoths," and it's like,
love that paper.
No, you knuckleheads. No, we need to just bring back the woolly rhino so you can lay out a bunch. Just kidding. That's not a feasible plan. But no, that's I'm glad to hear that there hasn't been pushback. And if anything, people are like, oh, we like this. Let's try to do more. Let's maybe give you more money.
Well, and I think in a time of precarious funding and not knowing what's going to happen with scientific funding, showing that you can have research that addresses a real world modern problem, but then use that same data to ask some of these questions that we might also find interesting of the past. That, I mean, whether Neanderthals ate maggots or not, I don't know how relevant that is to modern humans today, but I think it's really interesting. And I think that it's a great test of that hypothesis, using the data for a forensic anthropology project, but also to use it to test this hypothesis.
Could possibly give us ideas. I don't know. The future is a little bleak. We might have to get resourceful.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I feel about my edible insects research, is like, we don't need to do this today, but there is some day that you're going to be glad that we've had this conversation already.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, I think it's, especially with the lack of water moving forward and how much livestock takes, and more and more in the past, I feel like since even your book came out, people are talking about how raising livestock is just so bad for the environment, So yeah, something to consider. No, this has been so fascinating and so exciting. I don't know. I'm thrilled to see what you guys are coming up with next. Has funding been an issue with this administration? Do you have any concerns right now with that, or is it so far so good?
I mean, I'm still working on data from the postdoc, so so far the current administration is not affecting me personally, but I think in general for science and colleagues, yes, it is a concern.
Yeah. We were lucky that this was able to be postdoc money, startup money, all of those sorts of opportunities that you know, some of those perks of the academic world. And so we were able to use those perks to get this done. And that's how funding works, though. Like, you need to show data in order to get money. And so that's why they give you those perks, is to produce the data. And we produce beautiful data. And so hopefully we'll be able to then take that next step for external funding.
Yes. Yeah. No, this is exciting. I love a good, fantastic success story with two of my favorite people. So
I love you.
Where can people find you? I mean, not like, you know, literally, but
Currently,
oh no.
Oh, can't find her.
No. Oh, dear God. Canada's like, you can't give up your location. The maggots were grabbing you and taking you off into the night.
Exactly. I mean, I'm at Purdue, so yeah, in the middle of the Midwest for both of us.
Yeah. I think the only social I really use sort of anymore is Instagram. I have a blog I'm trying to write. That's what she meant. Yeah.
Oh, that's what you meant. I didn't understand that. Oops.
Give me your coordinates, Melanie. Give them to me now. No, it's good.
Find her at that brewery. So yeah, but I think my Instagram is all just my name, all one word, Julie Lesnik. Okay. And I'm trying to, like, do you remember that whole, like, I was going to be a public science communicator, like, phase that I went through that then just died because I mean, it was all pre-pandemic, and so like
you should though.
So that's all. I'm massaging that back into being again. So I have a blog and stuff I'm trying to launch. So yeah, so it's probably my Instagram that would be where you would be able to see more of those things.
Follow, do it, and go work.
You can find me live at conferences and at breweries. That is where you can find me. I have no social that is associated with anything. I'm terrible. What can I say?
No, you're a genius. Disconnect. I mean, except for, like, you know, you, Natalia, you keep killing it out there. But for the rest of us who aren't out there making our living on this sort of stuff, like, we need to disconnect more.
You give me too much credit. I'm not making that's I'm taking notes with this maggot stuff. I'm like, okay, so leave meat out for no. But yeah, it's you have a life, and I appreciate that, because social media is talking about, like, eating away at something.
It's hard, right? Like, you try to disconnect to, like, stay sane, but you also want to get our work out there, and so you want to stay connected, and it's tough. It's a tough balance. So I'm currently in this. I've disconnected heavy for a long time, and I'm trying to come back out. So it's my Instagram that you can watch for my resurrection.
Yes, you're coming back, and buy your book. Buy your book, Edible Insects.
You can find it on Amazon. You can probably find it used now, truthfully. Go to 8 books.
I know. I need to find that interview we did. It was 2014, because I interviewed Don Johansson in the same afternoon, because it was the 40.
That's 11 years ago.
I know. We are different people.
I know. No, you do not have my permission to use those quotes, because I have no idea.
No, I know. No, it's video, and it's very funny because you're just drinking a glass of wine, and I'm asking you what pairs well with, like, which insects. It was very silly.
Yeah.
It's on.
It was fun.
One of my thousands.
We should do it again, though. You know that now my life is wine and cheese, right? Like, that's my husband's job. So we should do that for real. You should have me and my husband on, and we'll talk pairings of insects and cheese and wine.
Now, I'm so sorry that I butchered the name. It's Kazumatsu. Kazumatsu. That's it.
Get that. We can't get it because it's actually even illegal to produce in Sardinia now. Like, it's a cultural fighting thing right now.
Wow.
So basically enough people stopped making it so that then they made it illegal, and so now there's people maybe doing it sort of prohibition sort of way, like
bathtub.
Bathtub Kazumatsu.
Oh God. Come to my bathroom. I don't know why I sound like the Count. Wow. So I got to ask you, you're both cheese gals. So what are your favorite stinky cheeses?
Anything that Julie's husband tells me I need to try. Like, I go up and I visit their cheese shop, and wine shop. And I just look at him and I go, okay, Charlie, what do I eat? And he gives me wonderful stinky cheese, and it's amazing.
That's right. Like, I live off of just going there and tasting things. Like, I rarely have cheese as like a serving anymore because I just get to go there and taste everything. Because I walk a couple doors down and he's there working.
What? You live next door to this? What do you live in the? I know that you're not in. It sounds like you're in the south of France. The way you know.
I know it's an idyllic life.
Julie lives the dream. Julie lives the dream. Let me tell you, it's amazing.
I need to wait. Do you still have your cats too? The one
oh my gosh, yes, they've been like taking over my life. They're both 16.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so they
was one of them Tater? No, what's one of them's name?
You know,
what is it? Tater?
Yep, Tater.
Yes.
And you know the other one is Shitten.
Shitten. Yes. How did I forget Shitten? Oh my god, because Shitten is the orange one, right?
Yep.
And I have pictures of Shitten like just like screwing with Tater, like putting him in a death grip like this, and Tater, you know, Tater's just like, I accept this. This is my fate, and Shitten's just like, God, I love your weird animals. And you have Melanie, do you have a big dog?
Big dog.
Uh-oh, am I gonna see the big dog?
I'm gonna see the big dog. Hey, Shasta, say hi. Say hi. Can you look here?
Oh
Hi, Shasta.
my God.
Oh, hi. Okay, I woke the beast.
Like Mount Shasta?
Like Mount Shasta, yeah. She's a Bernese mountain dog, so she had to be named. She had to be named after a mountain, in my opinion.
Oh my god,
so,
she's beautiful. Oh
she's been my road trip puppy all summer, so we've been on the road since May, and yeah, she's pretty awesome.
Oh my god, that's so beautiful. I know I do like the pet portion of show and tell. That usually, you know, I'm like, Julie's like, do I have a cat?
No, my cats aren't around.
There you go, puppy.
I'll grab Raisin. Raisin is oh no, I lost a light. There we go. Oh, hi, buddy.
Dog by
I love. Oh my goodness, little sweeper. Raisin, do you want to say hi to the people of the internet? She's staring at me like, what do you want? Raisin.
You're a good girl.
Hi, you're a good girl. Oh, Raisin.
Sorry, what's up? Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm still muted?
Oh. You're good now. I can hear you. You're good.
Okay, good. Sorry, Raisin, you know, she does things. Anyways, that's the dog portion of the show.
That's all of the dogs honored.
We needed a little of that, a little, you know, frivolity. They're stinky cheese monsters. That's what.
Yeah, I would say they would all love maggots and stinky cheese without any issue.
Yeah, none at all. I think they'd just be enthralled by it. That's the thing. Again, like we're talking about just this idea of what is gross and I mean, that is all relative. It is just, I mean, I survive on peanut butter and peanut butter alone, and people think I'm absolutely foul for it. But like, you know,
Shasta will eat Manchego cheese. She'll eat Jarlsberg. She will not touch Kraft singles. She has a level of standards that is insane.
Just like that's not cheese. Simple.
That's wild.
I love her.
I love that. Yeah, I love her. Oh my gosh. She's like, no, that's plastic. That right there. Actually, yeah, that pretty much is probably
hydrogenated oil.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. You guys are the best. I wish we were doing this in person. This would be, you know.
That'd be a lot of fun. That'd be a lot of fun.
Are you going to be at the meetings next year? Are the meetings in Denver again next year?
Denver in March.
Denver has a chance of convincing me to go there over other places. So we'll see.
You might go to Denver?
Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, I have missed the past couple. So I don't
do
know.
AAAs more than AABAs now, just because my research questions have shifted that way. So I tend to do AAAs more, and I have no idea where that's next. So who knows?
Oh, it's in New Orleans this
Is
year.
it New Orleans? I believe it's in New Orleans.
Are you going to New Orleans this year?
I don't plan. I don't have an abstract in for this.
Yeah.
Do I? I don't think I do.
I would love to go, but I also, you know, it's they're a lot.
It'll probably be another year because I'm like my research is adjusting and shifting, and so I'm doing a Society of Historical Archaeology is going to be hosted at Wayne State. We're doing it in Detroit. So
great.
So after Society of Historical Archaeology, after I do that talk, then I might be ready to start doing other conferences again.
Oh, that's great. Okay, well, fingers crossed we'll all cross paths shortly and enjoy some maggots over some, you know, Malbec. I don't know. What do you rosé? That's
maggots and Malbec.
Maggots and Malbec.
Yeah. Huh? I would go white wine with maggots. So you know,
right?
Yeah.
What do they taste like? Do you know?
You know, it's you know, a good bubbly. Go cava.
Bubbly, yeah, exactly. I don't know. I feel like they probably have a nutty taste. Personally, I don't know why. That is just what comes to mind, but I don't know.
It's gonna be more along those lines.
Yeah, there's only one way to find out.
Only one way to find out. But we can get those black soldier flies. We can do it.
Okay. Well, I know what we're doing next time we see each other. Yes. Well, thank you so much, you guys, for being here.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. And I know, Melanie, you had to track down Wi-Fi and set up.
I got Wi-Fi though. It's great.
You did it, and I very much appreciate it because I wanted to cover this sooner rather than later because it's such a cool story, and I cannot wait to see what else you guys come up with because it's gonna be good. And yeah, you know, I'm ready to grub out now. I'm actually kind of hungry, so this did not destroy my appetite.
Nope, it's a good time for a snack.
Well, thank you so much, and if you have any other parting words or things to look out for, feel free to let the internet know.
Thank you, Internet, for liking the maggots. I appreciate it.
Yay! And I have the article in the description, so please read it and read all the corresponding fun articles too, because they all are great. You guys are great to interview, so
it's fun.
Awesome. Yay! Well, have a great day. Be safe, and
awesome.
Yeah, I'll see you the next time, and I'm gonna wrap this one up. Hold on one second. This is called live entertainment. I'm going to thank you, Dr. Melanie Beasley and Dr. Julie Lesnik, for all that you do to teach us about Neanderthals of meat and maggots. So thank you for that. And be sure to follow them on any socials that they mentioned. And a big thank you to my producer, Peter DeTucker. I always call him Dr. Peter. He's definitely a doctor in my mind, not a real doctor, but a doctor in my heart and mind. And here's a quick reminder that if you like this, please like it, subscribe, and comment. Send questions because these are friends of mine, so I can ask them questions post-show. And if you want to support this elaborate production, you can join my Patreon. It also supports my other SciComm work, and I'm also launching a Substack soon, so please keep your eyes open for that. And I want to thank my wonderful patrons who have been supporting. You have made this possible. Thank you so much. So my patrons, Daniel Wynn, Claude Allen, Tom Skullbeard, Tori Yates-Orr, Redding Maley, brother of Blaine Maley, Dana Logan, Michael Z. Weinstock, David Leitner, also an anthropologist, James Hudspeth, Dr. James Hudspeth, Anthony Zana, Tom Berman, not a doctor, Jen Beverstock, Scott Froschauer, JSB, Jeff Cohen, Andrea Bloom, Dr. Jonathan Marks, Kelly Frazier, Michael Clanton, PJ Shapiro, and Carrie Dorr. Thank you so much. And next week we are TBD for guests and time, so check back shortly. And until next time, folks, stay extra filthy and have a maggot or two or three.